back, guys, to Eat, Lead, Sleep.
Hello, I'm Kalina.
And I'm Tapas. How's it going, Kalina?
Going very good. How are you today, Tapas?
Good. So I have a quote for you
Yes.
for our discussion today.
Hit me with it.
So it's, give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach a man how to fish and he will eat for a lifetime.
Ooh, I like it.
How does that apply to us as leaders?
Great question.
Yeah.
So in work, I find myself very often giving the fish instead of taking the time to teach someone how to get their own fish, right? Because it takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
So very often I will come in with the solution and say, this is how you do something, and expect that they will know how to do it on their own afterwards. But I haven't actually shown them how to do it or how to think through how to do it. Do you find yourself doing the same?
Yeah, actually, as early as today. So I know we talked about this earlier.
There was a reason to this quote. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, the inspiration behind all this
Okay.
discussion today was around what we talked about earlier today, right? So backstory is, guys, one of my locations, we're struggling with something that we need to do. They're really behind. So what do? Instead of teaching and holding my team, helping my team with on how to do it, I literally rolled up my sleeve, went to the location, and just started working as if I was just another employee.
Tapas to the rescue.
Tapas to the rescue, yeah. And I'll be honest, it didn't feel good because I didn't feel good by helping my team, but I just felt like as a leader, I should have A, prevented this, and B, I should be able to help my team get out of it without me being directly involved, right? So I was literally there.
And why is that important? Why should your team be able to figure it out on their own without you having to either show them how to do it or do it for them?
Well, I think it's really important for the team to be able to learn it because in the future, we're going to help prevent this.
Yes.
So I think, when I do this kind of stuff, and I'm guilty of this, I'm still learning on how not to do this. So it's something that's great for me to learn from you because I know you do the opposite of this.
Whereas I just don't do it.
Yeah, that too. But, I'm setting a precedence with my team saying that, hey, you know what? If the location's on fire, he's going to come in, he's going to come work whenever he can, and he'll get us caught up.
He'll bail you out.
I'll bail him out all the time, and maybe that's because I'm also that person that likes to always help my team, and I feel my way of supporting my team is to literally get in there. But again, as leaders, we have to think the other way, which is literally helping them.
Yeah.
So the next time they're in the same trouble, I don't have to jump in there and help them. Not that I don't want to, but I want them to feel empowered to say, hey, you know what, we're going to fix this. Tapas has helped us out in the past, but we know how to do this properly this time.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get to this stage.
Well, you're also not always going to be around, right?
Exactly.
So creating that thought process and strategy where your team can actually think through the solutions or things that they need to get done will create more of a sustainability than them relying on you and expecting you to go in and rescue them.
Exactly, because this is not the first time at this location that I've had to go in. I've already done one similar bout of this in the past, and now here I am again, back-to-back days going in there, right, and saving them again. So,
I feel like this is pretty cool because you guys. Tapas actually used to work for me before he got promoted, and one of the reasons that Tapas got promoted was because he's so good at his job, and now as you're talking about it, you've been such a great executioner that kind of stays with you. Now that you're in a leadership role, some of that tendency starts to come out because that's just what you're naturally so good at. You go in and you do it. When we think about being a leader, we really have to think through, like, how do we lead and teach our teams without actually having to do the work? How do we get them to think through the best solution before they come to us and say and ask us to bail us out? Because even as leaders, our role is really to help them, right? But the best impact and value that you can add for your team is to actually get them to think it through on their own. Yeah.
So actually, that's a great question for you because I'm still learning. So I would love to hear from you because you actually do a really good job of helping your team. I've seen you, I used to work for you, and I also seen you in other store locations where you're like, your team feels empowered to fix it themselves. You'll go in and you'll say, you know what, I know how to do this. I know how to fix this myself. I don't need Kalina to come in and bail me out. So how do you do it?
I had to learn that I did not have to be the subject matter expert of everything. Right? What was really hard for me when I transitioned into a leadership role was thinking that I had to be the best at everything and thinking that I had to have the answer for everything. And not only did that weigh me down, it put so much pressure on me to be the expert and then feeling like I had to be there every step of the way. It took time away from me doing the leadership stuff that I should have been doing, like strategizing, the pipeline planning, figuring out how to proactively have my business thrive and succeed. Instead, I was like in the weed work and doing all of that with everyone at the same time. So being able to let that go was probably the hardest thing, the first and foremost hardest thing, because you almost feel that sense of like value, like my value is being able to do this for my team. But once you let go of that and understand that your value is more than doing, it's that facilitating an environment where people want to think through and do things on their own.
Yeah.
It's so much more engaging and exciting for me to wake up every day and say, okay, how can I help someone be better at a leader, be a better person and be able to think through things versus how can I help my business be more successful. It's not about that. It's helping that collaboration, that thought process of my team. So whenever my team comes to me with a problem, honestly, my secret, guys, is that I don't even know what I'm doing half the time.
It doesn't seem like that. It does not seem like that.
But I don't expect that I need to, because my role isn't to have all the answers. It's to help my team figure out how to get there. So a lot of times when my team comes to me and says, hey, this is what I need, this is what I'm struggling with, it's more of a conversation piece to empower them to own their business and do things on their own. So it's a lot of me questioning, like, okay, well, tell me, what have you done? What are you thinking through next? What do you think you would need to be successful? If you want to get to here, what are the steps that you would need to take to get there, and what resources you need? And then I would come in and be able to support with the resources, the time, and all of that to help them get there. But every person is different. My way isn't the right way. So for me to come to the table with the solution may not always work.
Right. And, I don't think I told you about this in the past, but shadow of a leader, right? Which we all talk about.
Shadow of a leader.
And, during our recent alignment where we got transitioned to new locations.
Our new jobs, guys.
Yeah, our new jobs, right? I got some of your locations that you used to oversee in the past, right? And the cool thing here was, like, one of your old locations came to me and said, hey, Tapas, I'm very understaffed. I don't know, I'm going to be struggling in the next couple of weeks. I'm looking for people. And I'm like, okay, so here I am, right? Mr. Tapas, save the day. Okay, what do we do? Do you want me to help you hire? Do you want me to do this? Like, no, I got it. I'm just giving you a heads up that we're going to struggle for a couple of weeks. I've already gotten candidates in line. We're good to go. And it just made me think back, like, okay, that's the shadow of a leader, right? Like you said, you're not going to be around in the long term, but your team continues to have that same mentality. And this is across all locations, guys. So, like, it's amazing to see it because it actually is put into work. And
that makes me feel so good.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And I thought about it, and I'm like, that's what I would want to strive myself to get to, right? Is that my team says, you know what, I don't need my leader to help me with this hiring process. I will help myself. I'm just going to give you a heads up that I'm going to struggle a little bit, and you might see my scores.
And that's really cool because they feel empowered to say that I might have to take a couple steps back in order to jump and lead many steps forward. Like, they understand that risk and the investment, the short-term investment for the long-term gain.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing I haven't shared with you, but that was really cool. As you were talking about it, I thought about, like, you know what? That's a perfect example of that, right?
Very proud of that leader.
Yeah. And, I was reading a book, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, right? And he talks about Bill Walsh. Okay. And Bill Walsh is a coach for the 49ers, I believe he was. And this team started off, they were 0-18 before he got the win, or 0-16 rather. They had not won a single game when he first started. No, the season that he was hired, they were 0-16.
Sounds like where I'm at right now with my new team.
Bottom of the NFL, the worst team there is, right?
You guys, it's funny because every week Tapas and I argue about who's the worst of the worst.
I'm winning so far, guys. We actually have bets on this.
We do.
Yeah. But then the next season, right, here he is. He's a legendary coach, by the way, now. Next season, again, 0-16. And he realized, because he was going in there and he was telling his team how to tackle. He's telling his team, hey, this is how we prepare for our game, this is how we do it. But he realized, and in the next season when they end up winning the Super Bowl, so we went from the worst team to the best team, he was like, I empowered my team. I can't go in the field and block for them. I can't go in the field and throw touchdowns for them. I literally had to say, hey guys, I'm going to trust you with your decision making. I'm here on the sidelines to be your coach. Yep. I'm not going to be in there to help you along the way. We're going to run into a lot of difficult teams. We're going to run into a lot of difficult adversities. We're going to stay together. I'm going to help you get there, but I'm not going to physically be able to block for you. So that was a really cool thing that I remember reading in the book. And I was like, and because his ego could have said, you know what, I have a crappy team, pardon my language, and here I am. I'm just gonna accept it for what it is.
Did you say pardon my language for the word crappy?
Well, I started off with the S word. And then I went to the C word. But yeah, it was really
crappy is a C word for you. I'm afraid.
Well, we both have toddlers, so crappy. We don't want our toddlers to say crappy either, right? So for me, that's a cuss word now. But yeah, it was really cool to see that he didn't let it get in the way, and also he had that moment with his team.
What is inspiring about that story is that he wasn't hung up on the results of the game.
Exactly.
Right? Like, he knew that it wasn't about the points, it was about investing in the players to get to where they needed to.
Yep.
And again, it's that short-term investment for that long-term gain. So that's pretty cool. Because, a lot of our peers and a lot of, not just in our industry, but just everyone in general, I see everyone is working towards the outcomes. Mm-hmm. It's always the end result. What is the number? And then a lot of times what happens is they say, we have to get to this. This is our goal. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of work backwards versus saying, okay, let me work on my team, focus on my people, working on the right behaviors, do the right things, and then have the goals kind of fall in line with it.
Exactly. Again, going back to the quote, right? You get your short-term goal, that's eating for a day, versus long-term goal, eating for a lifetime, right?
And so that's what it is. It's that investment. No one wants to make the time to teach someone to fish when you can just give it to them and then move on to something else. But you're going to end up having to give them that fish every single day. So.
And you're adding more to your plate when you do that, right? As a leader, and you have multiple locations that depend on you the same way. Yeah. And that's where leaders tend to burn out. I'll be honest, I burnt out yesterday. I was like, this is too much for me. I called her and she calmed me down. She's like, no, this is how we're gonna look at it, and it's always good to have that that one-to-one relationship with somebody like that. But
to be fair, you calm me down a lot more. We have a lot of venting sessions where I'm just like, rah!
Right.
And Thomas is like, okay, peaks and troughs, we're good. So big question then is, we know this. I think it's not a secret. It's a long, well-known quote. How do we keep it top of mind, and how do we actually practice it?
So I think our instincts, or at least for people who like to just give people the fish, is to jump in and help right away, right? What I think I need to do myself is to be proactively thinking ahead of time and saying, hey, okay, you're struggling. I'm here to support you. Here's what we can do let's have you come to this conclusion. What are we going to be doing differently on your end, right? So what do you think is the main cause here? What do you think you need to do from here on out? What can I do to help you support to get to that, right? It can't be I'm going in and physically working my.
So it sounds like
myself.
You will be more curious, asking more questions, and fighting that urgent desire to do right away and to get outcomes right away.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you battle that when outcomes are expected right away? Because that's when we start to feel the pressure. That's when it's a lot of times, I think it's two things. It's your personal own validation of saying, if I do this, it makes me feel better because I feel my worth, and maybe we don't always realize that, but I do catch myself doing that sometimes. Sometimes I'll do something just because I know I can. Mm-hmm. But then the other part of it is feeling that pressure where you actually have to, because the man above is saying we have to. Right. How do we battle that?
I think it requires the leaders to really step back and accept that we're gonna not meet outcomes right off the bat, right? So it could be where you have a discussion with your leader, with my leader. I can just say, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing differently at this sort. Here's how I'm supporting them. It's gonna take me an additional 3-4 days, whatever it might be, but here's how we're gonna change things around and this is my plan, this is what I want to do differently, versus just saying, you know what, I'm gonna go in there today, I'm just gonna do everything for them, so we can get the store nice and pretty, and we'll change it in a day. Versus I'm gonna have that discussion with my leader, and if he is as good of a leader as he is, he's gonna understand that it's gonna take some time. He or she, yep. And they're gonna take some time, and they're gonna get to where they need to be. Okay. What do you think?
I like that. I think it sounds like it's all about strategizing and being proactive.
Yeah.
Right? And I think a lot of times that's where maybe some of the pressure comes from because I find myself doing the same. Like if my team is struggling, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, I will come in and be like, okay, what's going on? When can we get here? And it's because they haven't proactively communicated to me what's going on versus I know I have certain teams that are very proactive, and even before the numbers slip, the metrics slip, I already know it's going to happen because the team has come to me and said, this is what we're working on, this is what we're doing, this is the plan and whatnot, and it helps build on that relationship that we have and that respect that I have of them as a leader. So I come at it a little differently versus someone who's not been proactive and hasn't included me in some of the plans.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, we see what we see on paper, and if we don't have that opportunity to be curious, like you said, and ask all the questions, then we automatically have this biased idea of what's happening or what's going on in the store or business or whatever it is before we even get there.
Yeah, exactly. And you brought up a great point earlier about pride, right? So sometimes, our teams are also very prideful about their job. So they don't like to see their boss come in and work side by side with them or work, and to help them out. But they'll have hey, you know what, I know I would feel embarrassed. Like if you ever came to my old location and you started working, I would be like, can you please get out of the way? This is my store. I would feel embarrassed about it. So we definitely have a lot of teams that are the same way too. They may say like, hey, why is Tapas coming here and do this? I should be able to handle this. Why is my boss having to come here? It's also could be a very negative thing on a team's end, right?
And I think the best way to resolve for that is to again ask the questions.
Yes.
How can I support you? What's the best way for me to be your support? What is it that you need so that they can tell you? Because what it sounded like this morning when we were talking was that you were assuming that they wanted you to come in and help and do it for them. So
exactly.
Questions.
Yeah. So we'll throw it back at you guys. What kind of leader are you? Are you like me, where you've been tending to just jump in and help out? Yeah. And
I have too. I still do.
Right.
I have to remind myself every day to teach versus to do.
Yeah. So please definitely let us know in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are on this, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.